Hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Chatter. Yes, I am a solo again today. I have got some guests lined up for me though, folks. This is a conversation that I think is so important. So I want to say welcome if this is your first time here on Raw Chatter. This is a podcast where I am literally talking deep, raw, openly, honestly about the things that perhaps we know we would like to talk about, but we don't, usually for fear of being judged or for fear of thinking that we are the only person who thinks and feels like we do. And therefore, we must be mad or there's something wrong with us. So, what I want to tackle today is a topic that comes up so many times, and it's about change. Now, I know there is so much out there about change and how we go about it and the steps to doing it and all that kind of thing. But I think it's really important that I address this, particularly in today's world where we now have so much information available to us. It's ridiculous. We've got Google, we've got all of the different types of AI. We can go on to so many different digitalized platforms now that we didn't used to be able to have access to, including journals for all kinds of different specific areas of interest, whether it's health related or sports related or anything else. In other words, we literally have got a library at our fingertips, and yet we still find change is such a difficult thing to do, or for many of us it is, and that's because it's not an information problem. Now, I'm not going to dismiss information, because information and understanding is absolutely a vital first step, but it is a first step and it's not the only step. We need information and then we need to have awareness. That is crucial. And for many people, they do have both of those things. But what they don't necessarily recognize is that when it comes to changing who we are being, how we are showing up, it's our behavior that needs to change. And behavior is a physical thing. It's a pattern that involves our physiology and our psychology and our learned patterns, as well as our identity. And for most people, our current identity, and I'm doing this because this includes me, I am no different to any of you. We have a pattern that we will say things like, well, this is just me. This is who I am. This is what I do. So we have a pattern in so many different areas that we repeat. And therefore we think, well, this is just how I do things and it's how it is and how it's always been. And it may or may not be our own pattern that we've created. It may be one that we've copied from somebody else. But we all do have patterns of behavior. And they usually work for us. That's why we keep doing them. We wouldn't if they didn't work. But they're often costing us our health, our energy, our focus, our patience, our confidence in who we are, how we show up, how we look in our bodies, so many things that it can cost us. Our relationships with our friends and our business partners, as well as our personal partner, can all be affected by the patterns that we keep on repeating. So information is definitely one thing. But it was interesting. This weekend, I went to a summit, and I try and go. They hold it twice a year, and I try and go to at least one of them. And it's the ICANN Summit. Now, that stands for Integrative Healthcare and Applied Nutrition Summit. And this is really for nutritional therapists and people who work in the field of functional medicine, as well as doctors. And then people like me who kind of cover all of that stuff. No, I'm not a doctor, but I have done functional medicine training, addiction psychology, fitness and sport, and all of that kind of thing, fitness instruction, but also understanding language, so behavior change, cognitive behavioral therapy, neuro-linguistic programming. I've got a plethora of qualifications and certifications. I've been in this game since 1991, so I've learned a lot of stuff. And what I know is it's not information that helps people to change, but it is about understanding how people work. And we have got to recognize that unless you focus from a solution-based standpoint, it's going to be a struggle to help people to get to where they want to be, whether that's with an actual addiction, or whether it's with how they are speaking, how they are feeling in and on themselves, whether it's managing any kind of physical pain or perceived pain, which is important, or a label that they have, whether it's self-labeled or they've been given one. I'm talking about things like anxiety disorder or addiction deficit, these kinds of things. And whether you have a label or not, and I'm not going to dismiss labels. I think they're important because they can help you to recognize that this issue that you've been struggling is actually a thing, and no, you're not going mad. And there are other people who feel and think very similarly to you. I'm not going to say exactly the same because we're not, but along similar lines. So I was at this summit this week, and there must have been, it's a big room. I'm not great at estimating numbers, but I'd say between 300 and 400 people were in this room. And Dr. David Unwin and Dr. Jen Unwin, I really rate their work. They work in the NHS, but they have a passion for helping people literally reverse type 2 diabetes and understand food and mood and how their body is affected by the foods that they eat. And one of their important sayings is that food is not medicine, right? It's not there to fix you, but food absolutely does affect how we think, how we feel, and how we function. So I'm very much on the same page with them. And so they were asking about, how do therapists work with their clients? And they said, who is a solution-focused practitioner? And out of that whole room, just me, I was the only person who put up my hand. And I kept scanning the room and thinking, I can't possibly be, right? All of these people have been in this world for a long time. Maybe not all of them for quite as long as me, but some of them for sure have been. And yet, in my own head, I kind of went, well, maybe that explains why people are stuck, or we have this revolving door where people are going from therapy to practitioner to something else, to something else, to something else, because they're not being shown, they're not being given the tools, they're not being helped to understand how we change behaviors. And it isn't just information, it's not just knowing. The people that I work with are all business owners, founders, CEOs, smart, intelligent people who are driven by success, by achieving, by being good at the thing that they know they excel at. In other words, they're not daft people. So it's not about being intelligent and it's not about information, but it's understanding that reading the books, listening to all of the podcasts, saving the posts, downloading the whatever, the checklists, right? It doesn't change the fact that you're still doing the same thing when you get home from work. You're still reaching out for that same glass of wine or that same drink at the same time. You're still scrolling on your phone to just switch off or to procrastinate. They are still going on to a gambling site online, or they are literally going into somewhere. In other words, the knowing doesn't stop the behavior pattern. So clearly knowing isn't the issue. Now, our habits, and all of us have them, right? And I'm not going to label them good and bad. Some of them make us genuinely feel great. And we do them because we know that even though the behavior that we need to do, so I'm going to use going to the gym as an example. If it's leg day, and if you are somebody who is using weights in the gym, then you know that leg day it's usually quite a tough day. But usually, if you're doing a leg day, it means you've already created a gym going habit. But you also know that it's probably not the day that you look forward to most. But your habit is you go to the gym, and part of that habit is you work specific body parts when you are training so that you get value from that training. And you may not be enjoying the training when you're doing it, but afterwards it feels good. Now, there are other habits that are exactly the reverse. You look forward to it. The anticipation of it is usually, often in fact, more exciting than when you actually get the thing. And I'm going to use shopping for this, because the excitement is looking through and it's clicking the button and putting the thing in your basket and looking through and going on different sites and seeing if have you got the best deal, is it the right style for you. That's the anticipation, that's the excitement, that is fulfilling a need. But when the stuff actually arrives on your doorstep, well, it's no longer giving you what it was giving you when you were looking. But the anticipation of the thing is often better than doing the thing itself. And then there are habits that are in between those two. So I'm never an either or person. And if this is the first time you'll have come across me, you'll know that I don't do either or, I do and. Very rarely do we all just work at the two extremes of an either or an or. There's a lot of parameter for all kinds of different variations in between. But usually the habits that we want to stop are the ones that will give us an instant gratification, but long term, the effects aren't great. These are the ones that will sap our energy. These are the ones that will stop us from feeling great in terms of being able to focus. These are likely the ones that make us feel a sense of shame or of guilt. I'm thinking about wine that switches your brain off, helps you to relax, reduces anxiety, but when you wake up the next morning, your anxiety is sky high again. I'm thinking about sugar that gives you a sense of calm and release. And I'm going to put flour into that bracket as well. High sugar, high flour, high salt foods absolutely do calm you down. That's why we turn to them. They work. It gives you that sense of relief, but it doesn't last long. And then you need to do it again. Overworking, right? Giving, working harder, pushing through definitely gives you a sense of control when you're getting through that to-do list. And it's like, next thing, it does. But it leaves you feeling exhausted and not able to be the partner, the person, the friend that you actually want to be. And maybe it stops you from doing exercise or other things that are going to help you actually to feel more energized and to feel more regulated. So this is where we've got to look at the fact that if you're trying to stop something, but you continue to do it, it doesn't mean that you're failing to change. It just means that you're going about it the wrong way. Because if you just decide you're suddenly going to stop, but you're not really aware of why you are doing the thing in the first place, what it's actually giving you, it's not going to help. In fact, if anything, it makes it worse. Because awareness can keep you more stuck, because now you understand the issue. Maybe you're even analyzing why it happened, when it happened, you're identifying the root cause. Great, but is it enough? No. Because you can fully understand why you do it and what it's giving you and still do it. And so that now makes you even more frustrated. It's like, oh my goodness me, why am I still doing this when I know better? But knowing isn't doing. And so this is where it was so important to hear the two doctors talking about this, because food addiction is finally now recognized as an actual addiction in and of its own right, i.e. not as part of the umbrella of an eating disorder, but actually just like alcohol addiction and shopping addiction and sex addiction, now food addiction is being recognized. Hurrah. Is an eating disorder the same as food addiction? No. Can you have food addiction within an eating disorder? Yes. Does food addiction on its own mean that you have an eating disorder? No. And that matters. And if you don't understand what I've just said, maybe stop it, rewind it, and have another listen. And if you want some more information about that, then drop a comment, because I'm very happy to have a conversation with you about just what I mean by that. And I will be expanding on this. No doubt I'll be doing a written post on it, or even my blog probably this month will be on this very topic. But this matters, right? Because it's now officially recognized food addiction as an addiction. Now, does it remove shame? Does it validate people who are experiencing? Yes, I think it does. But if we just stop at the label, we can kind of give people an explanation without giving them the help to get over it. And I do personally believe that people need better explanations. What I do think is that they need to understand how to make better decisions in the moment. And this is why I believe it is so important that we understand physiology, psychology, and identity. And that is why I do what I do. I changed my kind of title so that people understand what I do, because I'm not just a health coach. I work with you to help you to understand your physiology, your body, your blood sugar, your hormones, your nervous system, your gut function, everything that is to do with what makes you actually function internally, because that will affect how your brain is working, including how you think and the patterns that you have, which is why I also understand psychology, your patterns, what you've learned to do under pressure. And our patterns are very much the thing that we believe is our identity, right? We create these patterns and then we say, this is who I am. But this is where we got to recognize your psychology, your beliefs, your values, your identity. All of those things need to be looked at along with your physiology. Because when stress hits, you're not just going to rise to the level of the knowledge, you're going to fall back to your identity, which is very much determined by your psychology, the language that you use, because we all think in words, affect how we feel, and that affects the behaviors that we make. But the language we use is going to very much be determined upon what we've been programmed with, our own belief systems, our values, and the very words themselves. And this is why it's so important to understand all of those pieces, not just one or two of them. And often this is why if you just work on doing exercise and nutrition, but you're not looking at your thoughts and your feelings and your language and your psychology, you're going to struggle. If you look at just your thoughts, your feelings, and your psychology, but you don't understand how your body's working, your hormones, your nervous system function, your digestive system function, if you've got any genetic SNPs, if you don't understand any of that stuff, you're also going to struggle. It's like, trying to do a jigsaw puzzle, but at any one time you've got either a third or 2/3 of the pieces missing. You're not going to get a complete picture. It's as simple as that. And this is often why high performers stay stuck, because they have a lot of knowledge and they also know themselves often quite well, because probably they have been in therapy, but they don't understand that when they're under pressure, when their body is having a physiological, biological, neurological response, and depending upon how their system is functioning, they are not necessarily going to recognize that the habits that they have are functional. They're solving a problem. It's just not in a sustainable way. And often these people are running on adrenaline. And they often use things like food or alcohol or scrolling or certain kinds of recreational drugs to switch off. And therefore they serve a purpose, they work. As I say, they are a solution, but we look at them as being the problem, the bad guy. And it's not that. They are doing something for you. It's not sustainable. And there is a cost. So this is the shift that you kind of can start doing. Okay, so you can keep asking, why am I doing this? Or you can start asking a much better question. What do I do instead when I want to do that thing? What can I do? What does feel doable for me to do? When I want to reach out for the thing, is there something else I can do instead? And this is part of delay, distract, and decide, because I'm not saying that you never do the thing, but could you do something else? Could you put it off, say, for 10 minutes? Go do something else and then come back and decide, do I still want to do it? Maybe I do. Do I want to delay it again? Maybe I do. What else could I try? And this is the difference. It's not about knowing on an intellectual level. It's about knowing on an experiential, living, feeling, physiological level. Somatic is the word that people use, but it's doing the thing, doing something different. See how it feels. Does that feel better for me? Can I do this again next time? So this is a real intervention in real time. And I'm going to invite you to try it. Now, it could be something simple. It could be that you just want to move your body It maybe you need to just go out for a walk and change your energy. It could be that you need to do something with your hands, and I highly recommend hands and eye coordination is usually a good thing. So that could mean like rearranging the books on a shelf. It could be tidying out a drawer. It could be cleaning something. Anything that is going to get you fully involved using both your eyes and your hands usually works well. It might be that you want to try just some deep breathing and relaxation. It may be that you want to listen to a 5-minute meditation. It may be that you want to tune in and decide to do some tapping, or you could use an essential oil and just go read a book. My point is, find out what you think will work for you. Now, if you're in a work situation, it's going to be different potentially to when you're in a social situation and when you're in a home situation. So have a plethora of things that you can try. But by experimenting, by actually doing instead of knowing, you're going to start to feel that you're a little bit more in control of things. Because right now, you're probably just stuck in a loop. And it's not because you don't know enough, but it's because the thing that you're trying to stop is actually still doing something for you. And until you replace that properly, you will keep going back. And it's not because you're rubbish, and it's nothing to do with the willpower, and it's not discipline. It's just that you're not actually doing something to replace the thing that is giving you something quite powerful, your solution. And once you can do something different and give yourself a break, yes, you can go deeper if you want to, but sometimes you don't need to. And this is the work that I do with people. And it's different to what most people are doing. Yeah, we can look at all of your markers and your blood markers and what is happening to you. And we can have all the information on what macros you should be doing, and a really good training program. And we can help you to recognize what is going on in terms of your body and how it's affecting your blood glucose levels. And if you've been given something by your doctor that says, hey, you're on your way to type 2 diabetes, or carry on like you are, you're heading for a heart attack. This is the time where you want to have a look at, what am I currently doing? Know that. What do I think that I am doing it for? What is it giving me? Look at that. And then look at what can I do instead? Actually look at your pattern, know it. Not with guilt, not with beating yourself up in judgment, but just knowing. And start there. Because what I can tell you is it's not an information problem, and it's not an intelligence problem. It's being able to understand how we shift behavior problem. And that means you have to look at physiology, psychology, and your identity. And when you look at all of those, then with help, it's hard to do this stuff on your own, you can change. And the beauty is it doesn't have to take as long as you think. So if you do think that you would like some help, then please do get in touch with me. All of my details are in the show notes and in the description. Please do just drop me a message or send me an email. I will reply to you. And yes, it's me personally. It's not an AI and it's not a bot. And I just want to say, if you have found this episode helpful, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. And if you think this is helpful to someone you know, please pass it on to them, because it's so important that we start talking about this stuff without judgment and without shame. You can get help. And I promise you, you can do this. You just have to get the right help and do the right stuff in the way that works. And I'll leave you with this like I always do. We only have one life, as far as we know, and one body. So please look after it, because it is looking after you. Until next time, have a good one.